It's springtime in Paris, and there is a new spring bounce and vitality in the India-France relation. Paris in April looks like the heaven on earth and is the first stop in Prime Minister Narendra Modi's maiden trip to Europe and the continent's powerful economy. When Prime Minister Modi sits down for talks with the French President, there will be a lot on the table besides delicious gourmet food for which the French are famous. The menu will be appetizing and varied. Trade and investment, nuclear energy, science and technology, defense deals, and space will vie for the leaders' mind space as they map out an ambitious agenda to upscale the India-France relations across the spectrum. The leaders of India and France forged a personal rapport when they first met on the margins of the G20 summit in Brisbane in November last year. Economic diplomacy will be high on agenda. Ahead of his three-nation trip to France, Germany and Canada starting April 9, Prime Minister Modi has tweeted, "My France, Germany and Canada visit is centered around supporting India's economic agenda and creating jobs for our youth. We'll discuss strengthening India-France economic cooperation and visit some high-tech industrial units outside Paris." Indeed, economic relations are on an upward trajectory, with bilateral trade exceeding $7 billion. India is looking for more French investments and seeking France's support for the Make in India campaign and the Smart Cities project.
One of the key sectors will be the sector of smart cities. And some of the global leaders in urban planning, urban infrastructure, urban transportation, water management, sewage management, public sanitation are French companies. We also have more than 700 French companies who are working in India. The French investment in India, if we take the total investment in India, would be of the range of about more than $10 billion. These are some of the areas which I think could contribute a lot to the idea of Make in India, in addition to the strategic dimension, which would be the nuclear, space and defense.
Civil aviation has emerged as an important sector of cooperation, with Prime Minister Modi planning a visit to Toulouse, home to the legendary Airbus industry. Taking civil nuclear cooperation forward will be high on Prime Minister Modi's agenda. France was the first country to sign a bilateral civil nuclear pact with India after the nuclear suppliers group's waiver in September 2008. France is now in the process of finalizing arrangements for setting up 6 atomic reactors in India. The Space Corporation underlines the sky is virtually the limit. Indian Space Research Organization and its French counterpart CNES have been collaborating for decades on space technologies and jointly launching satellites. Against a backdrop of new cross-cutting threats, India will be looking to diversify strategic partnership and to deepen counter-terror cooperation. Prime Minister Modi promptly rang up the French President when a French satirical weekly was targeted by terrorists in Paris, and reaffirmed India's commitment to deepening counter-terror cooperation.
India is, of course, a very important country. It's a huge country, a need in development. It's a very energetic country that needs cooperation and seek for cooperation in many fields: economy, banking, counter-terrorism. And the personality of the Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, is very interesting for us because he's new Prime Minister. He has different ideas.
Defense cooperation remains the bedrock of the growing strategic partnership. France is among the top suppliers of cutting-edge weapon systems to India. One can expect some concrete discussions on fast-tracking the purchase of multi-role combat aircraft Rafale during the talks in Paris. Culturally, India and France connect and bond beautifully.
In many ways, Paris is considered the cultural capital of Europe at least. And one thing which is very interesting is that the French people have always been very open to Indian culture. There is a very strong school of French academicians, French dancers, who have specialized in Indian languages, Indian culture, Indian dance and Indian music. And many of them live here and they provide a very solid bridge between the two countries.
Paris remains the dream destination for Indian tourists, and the India story has a captive audience in France. Bollywood rocks in France, and the French cinema has a devoted following in India. This cultural alchemy glowed in Namaste France and Bonjour India festivals held in the last few years. Paris in April looks a perfect place and time to flower new dreams and celebrate this high moment in India-France relations.
हमारे जैसा दिल कहाँ मिलेगा, आओ तुमको दिखलाता हूँ पेरिस की एक रंगी शाम। देखो 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 देखो